Ramanatha had everything handed to him. When his wealthy father passed away, he inherited vast tracts of rich agricultural land, but he flatly refused to spend a single day actually working in the fields. He had a much easier plan in mind. Ramanatha was entirely convinced that a secret potion existed, a magical brew capable of turning ordinary, everyday objects into pure, solid gold. He dedicated all his time, and a significant portion of his inheritance, to tracking down this mythical recipe. Naturally, this made him a magnet for con artists, who happily took his money in exchange for empty promises. His wife, Madhumati, watched this charade with growing dread. The family coffers were steadily draining, and she knew exactly where this path led. The math was simple. If Ramanatha kept chasing alchemical shortcuts instead of tending to his actual estate, his laziness would inevitably bankrupt them all. Then a renowned sage named Mahipati passed through their town. Desperate for a breakthrough, Ramanatha immediately became his follower and begged him for the golden secret. Surprisingly, the sage nodded. He claimed to have heard of such a concoction during his long, isolated travels high up in the Himalayas. But the process was highly specific. Ramanatha would have to plant banana trees himself and carefully water them with his own hands. He then had to wait for the winter months and painstakingly scrape the morning dew off the massive leaves until he collected exactly 5 liters of the liquid. It was a monumental agricultural chore, but by framing it as the final, crucial ingredient for a magic spell, the sage hooked Ramanatha completely. Spurred by greed, the heir went straight to work. He transformed his neglected fields into endless rows of banana plants. Year after year, he tended the soil, watered the crops, and spent freezing mornings harvesting tiny droplets of water. While he was obsessed with the dew, something else was growing. The trees produced massive yields of fruit, which his wife Madhumati quietly gathered up. She hauled these heavy bunches down to the local market, steadily trading the harvest for cash, while her husband remained entirely focused on his bottle. Finally, after 6 grueling years of constant physical labor, Ramanatha secured his 5 liters of dew, completely oblivious to the vast, thriving plantation he had built around him. He proudly presented the bottle to Sage Mahipati. The old man smiled, accepted the jar, and muttered a theatrical nonsense incantation over the water. Ramanatha eagerly took the bottle back, sprinkled a few drops onto a plain copper vessel, and held his breath. The copper stayed exactly the same. He was furious. He shouted at the sage, aggressively accusing him of being a cheat and stealing 6 irrecoverable years of his life. Even with calluses on his hands and a massive farm at his back, he was still so deeply invested in the fantasy of a potion that he couldn't recognize his own accomplishments. The sage didn't argue. He just maintained his calm smile and gestured for Madhumati to step forward, carrying a heavy wooden box. She lifted the lid, revealing neat, heavy stacks of pure gold coins shining brightly inside. Mahipati looked at the shocked farmer and explained, "There was no spell. Every single coin in that box was bought and paid for by Ramanatha's constant field work and Madhumati's sharp market trading. It was a calculated trick. If the sage had simply told a lazy, entitled heir to go out and plow his fields, he never would have lifted a finger." The reality of the situation finally set in. Ramanatha dropped his search for magical shortcuts, realizing that consistent, patient effort was the only reliable way to turn dirt into